Chapter 6. Early morning found Talia waking just as the sun began to edge out the last shadows of night. Across from the small fire, the pallet where Lucas had slept lay empty. He wasn't there. Neither busy cooking breakfast nor carefully whittling the slingshot he had started the night before under her watchful gaze. It was better not to focus on his dark, intense face, which she found herself drawn to despite trying not to. Twice he had caught her looking, though she suspected he noticed every subtle glance she cast his way. Then he stopped moving, and the space between them thickened with the unspoken weight of what they had shared, and what they hadn't. She had quickly looked away, and later they had slept apart on separate beds. Talia rose, feeling cleaner than she had since their arrival. The small lagoon she bathed in after their passionate encounter had refreshed her physically and calmed her restless thoughts, though it failed to dull the unfamiliar ache growing inside her. In fact, seeing Lucas's broad, tense back turned toward her only sharpened that yearning, compounded by the knowledge that he wrestled with his own inner frustrations. As she stirred the fire, Talia welcomed the solitude, even if the absolute silence felt foreign and strange. The usual city noises were absent, replaced only by faint bird calls and the gentle murmur of waves retreating at low tide. The tropical breeze brushed past like a soothing hand, calming a fevered brow. She found herself wishing for a pan, some bacon, or eggs. Lucas had taken care of all their meals so far, and she longed to surprise him with breakfast, a small way to atone for the harsh words she'd thrown his way and now regretted. But it was too late to retract them, leaving only the sting of shame. Resolute to make amends, Talia looked down and spotted Lucas's footprints. She followed his trail until she came upon the SOS sign he had fashioned from dead branches, a stark mark against the pristine beach. She nudged it with her toe and felt a flicker of bitterness. "Not much help, is it?" she muttered. "Might as well toss it in the fire." Turning around, she stepped into a much larger footprint beside the smaller ones, and oddly felt a closeness, a bond with the man she pursued. About 50 yards ahead she saw him. What he was doing was mesmerizing. Not a dance, not any exercise she knew, but something fluid, precise, and powerful. She watched, captivated. Alone against the seascape, Lucas moved sideways, pivoted, delivered rapid strikes and jabs. The strength behind his motions was intense, almost impossible to compare to anything she had seen. Then he leapt, twisting in midair as if gravity didn't bind him, landing ready to face an invisible opponent. Talia thought only a madman could dare fight a warrior as magnificent as him. Lucas then spotted her. His slow, pleased smile told her everything, that he was happy to see her, that she pleased him deeply, in more ways than one. He wanted her and no one else. She returned his smile warmly. He nodded and turned sharply to the sea, bowing briefly. "Morning?" he called, jogging toward her. Effortlessly relaxed, Lucas reached her before she could reply. Their eyes met, holding memories and unspoken caution. "You're up early. Thought I'd be back before you woke up. What happened?" he teased. "Usually the smell of cooking wakes you." Talia hesitated. "I felt you weren't there. I missed you, so I woke up." His smile softened as he brushed a stray hair from her face. "I'm glad you missed me." Pressing a kiss to her forehead, he added, "Anyone ever tell you how good you look in the morning?" "No." "Well, I'm telling you now, and I like knowing I'm the first." She ran her fingers through her wild hair self-consciously. The lagoon had washed away the sand, but she had no brush to tame the tangled mass. Lucas watched her motion, and she felt a spark. A hunger? A jealousy? As though he longed to touch her hair but stopped himself. He quickly looked away toward the clear horizon. "The sun's coming up," he said. "Want to watch it with me?" She took his hand and squeezed it. He pulled her close, resting his chin on her head. She thought she felt a soft kiss on her hair before his arms wrapped around her waist and drew her against his chest. Together they shared a silent moment, away from the world, watching the dawn break. Peace and togetherness settled over them, as if the beauty belonged only to them. Do you know what this reminds me of? She asked, feeling the warmth of the sun's first rays glimmering over the sea. A golden, buttery yolk on a hot slice of sky? Lucas laughed softly, his chest rumbling as he hugged her tighter. Makes you think of food? You're small, but you sure have a big appetite. I always liked women who ate with enthusiasm, not ones who pick at their food like counting every calorie. A flash of possessiveness crossed her. What women had Lucas liked before? Surely more than a few. She hated them all, even though she'd never hated anyone before. It was a new, uncomfortable feeling. She felt grateful they were stranded here, with no competition. I might go for something served under glass, she said playfully, imagining poking a fork at one of his exes. Lucas chuckled. Sounds like your stomach's growling. He smiled. With that appetite, are you sure you're not eating for two? Talia's body went rigid, and Lucas's laughter faded away. The truth was clear to both of them now. He had uncovered her secret. At 25, she was still a virgin. Clearly by choice, but how old-fashioned was that? Still, Lucas hadn't treated her like some oddity. What were you doing when I found you? She asked, trying to recapture the ease they'd shared earlier. A kata, he replied. It's a sequence of moves I practice every morning before you're even awake. Turning her gently in his arms, he raised an eyebrow. How about I give you your first lesson right now? Hand me yours and I'll show you how to make a proper fist. He wrapped her fingers into her palm, then folded her thumb over them. All right, Talia, now smack it against your open hand. Like this? She asked, imagining it was one of his faceless past partners. Lucas grinned. That's quite the punch, but you need to keep your fist flat. Make sure all your fingers hit the target so the force spreads evenly. Talia mimicked his stance and practiced a few more punches on imaginary foes before nodding with satisfaction. Got it. See, I knew you would. Lucas moved behind her, lightly pushing the backs of her knees. They buckled, but he caught her easily. Hey, what was that for? She asked, surprised. Just showing what happens if you don't keep your knees bent, he explained. Let's start with the basic stance. His hands slid down her thighs, guiding her legs apart. You're too stiff. Relax. She tried, though it was difficult with his steady, confident grip shaping her posture. He bent her knees slightly, straightened her back, and positioned himself directly behind her, their bodies almost touching. Lucas fell silent, his hand gripping her arm firmly. Make a fist, he instructed, his voice deeper now as he leaned closer. Talia clenched her hand, and he pulled her arm close to her side. Keep it tight, thumb flat and pointing up. Now relax and feel how your body moves when you punch. Let your weight drive through the strike. With a steady hold on her wrist, he guided her through smooth, natural motions. In at the waist, twist, then snap out, in, out, in, out. Her breath quickened, and she noticed the subtle friction between their bodies with each movement. Lucas's voice grew huskier with every repetition. Talia, I think I'm getting it, she said, breathless. He paused but didn't let go. For a moment, she thought she heard a whispered curse, probably his frustration that they weren't doing something far more intimate. When he finally stepped back, she felt an instant pang of loss. He faced her with a look that spoke volumes about what neither dared say aloud. Tapping a finger to his lips, as if to hold back a kiss, he finally spoke. All right, Lucas said after a long silence. Now throw your best punch. He motioned to his bare stomach. Hit me. Hit you? Talia echoed, hesitating. I don't want to hurt you. But hadn't she already hit him? Or tried to? She remembered why she had sought him out in the first place. Lucas, she said quietly, remorse clear on her face. About yesterday. Yesterday's done, Talia. Let it go. We have today and tomorrow and the next day. But I behaved terribly. I've never acted like that before. It wasn't me. I lost control and let something dark take over. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. You can't blame yourself for feeling things you're not used to. Anger, fear, desire, they all live inside us. Sometimes these feelings overpower logic. Even you, Lucas? Especially me. I've faced those emotions many times, sometimes winning, sometimes not. But the other... He closed his eyes and inhaled deeply. That's always been under my control. Until yesterday. I almost lost it. You made me feel something new, something frightening. I'm still trying to understand it. I've been tested countless times during my training, but yesterday's challenge was the most intense. Talia was surprised that she had shaken him so deeply. You mean yesterday was different for you? Different is an understatement. It was eye-opening. I discovered parts of myself I never knew existed. I was so overwhelmed I felt like giving up everything I was. But I don't regret feeling it. In fact, I'm grateful. Lucas shook his head, recalling the moment. That was one wild ride. It opened a path I didn't expect and showed me there's more to me than I thought. You need to experience the same, Talia. As the Grandmaster says, you can't find freedom until you release old beliefs. Let go of who you think you are, and just be. That's how you grow. Talia absorbed his words. He was talking about desire and those strong emotions she had thought were forbidden. Inside, she felt a subtle but sharp sensation, like a bud waking from a long winter's sleep, slowly unfurling under a new, brilliant sun. That's good advice, far deeper than anything I ever learned in my dull philosophy classes. Don't credit me, Lucas chuckled. I'm still learning it myself. Maybe we can figure it out together. You're on. Lucas clapped his stomach so hard it cracked the air. Talia gasped, sure he'd hurt himself if he wasn't made of steel. Hit me, he challenged, punching again. Come on, Talia, you can't hit harder than that, it's nothing but a tickle. But I don't want to hurt you. If anyone gets hurt, it'll be me. So keep your fists tight, wrist firm, hips loose. Channel all your power in a straight line from your shoulder to the target. Give me your best shot. All right? She sighed. You asked for it. Talia threw a punch along the straight line and landed it on his stomach, or at least it looked like it. It felt more like hitting a slab of concrete. She fought the urge to wince and searched his face for any sign of pain. Lucas grinned. Not bad. He gestured at his chest, taunting like a sparring partner. Not bad for a girl. Come on, Talia, you can do better. You're no weakling, or are you? Lucas teased, throwing down the challenge. Talia accepted, ignoring the sharp sting in her knuckles as she swung again. Then again. That's it. Show me what you've got. Oh, Talia, you're impressive. Really impressive. She stopped, catching her breath while Lucas grinned broadly, clearly pleased. You're right, she said, feeling the power behind a well-thrown punch. I am pretty good. Here, try this. Oof. Lucas, she exclaimed, stepping forward to check on him. Are you okay? He shook his head, though a brief grimace crossed his face. I'm fine, he said, drawing a deep breath. Just didn't expect that one. I wasn't ready. Man, I must be getting soft. Chapter 7. Here you go, Talia. Fresh ammo for your sling. Lucas handed her a small pouch made from rabbit hide, packed with smooth, marble-sized stones. More already? She groaned, rubbing her forehead. Come on, Lucas, give me a break. I've been at this all morning. Lucas grinned. You'll keep at it until you get it right. But all right, a break sounds good. He settled down on a rocky ledge and patted the spot beside him. Hungry? I brought some berries, nuts, and... worms. Worms? You! Seriously, Lucas, put those away! Talia recoiled in disgust. Dot, he chuckled at her reaction, feeling like a mischievous kid with a crush. To tease her, he grabbed a wriggling worm and dangled it from his lips. Come on, kiss me, darling, he joked in a mock dramatic voice. We'll share the kingdom's bounty, with worms in our mouths. He leaned toward her and she screamed. Keep that away from me, you... Savage, Lucas interrupted, popping the worm into his mouth. Dot laughing at her horrified expression, he explained, They're edible, not much taste. It's just the idea, and the packaging, that's gross. Why would anyone eat worms? That's the most disgusting thing I've seen. And don't even think about kissing me again until you've rinsed your mouth out. Lucas washed down the worm with a berry, then flicked another one toward her, signaling her to open wide as he took aim. The berry landed perfectly on her tongue. He couldn't help but think how tempting real food could be. After their snack and a quick teeth clean with beeswax, he planned to rinse off in the lagoon before heading to his secret hideaway. Talia was going to love the new place once he showed her. But for now, she had more practicing to do, while he handled his roles as provider and mentor. Worms actually pack a lot of protein, he told her. Low calorie, always around if you know where to look. Remember, Talia, if you're ever out of food, worms keep you from starving. Not tasty, but better than nothing. He held out another worm. Try it. No chewing needed, just swallow. No way, she said firmly, shaking her head. Keep it. That little demonstration killed my appetite. I'd rather practice now than eat. Lucas tossed the worm over the ledge and stood up, watching her load the squirrel skin pouch attached to the 2 elastic bands he'd crafted from her hair on their first day together on the beach. 20 days later, he was even more captivated, not just by her growing skill, but by how she'd changed. Her skin had taken on a warm bronze glow. Her wild, sun-bleached hair looked radiant and tempting. Though her clothes were worn, Lucas was secretly working on a new outfit for her in his hidden cave, an intricate design made of small tanned hides and snakeskin strips. Target? He asked, picturing her in the daring new outfit he had in mind. The first branch on the big tree, about 20 feet out. Go for it. She drew back the sling, her toned arm flexing, and the strain pulled at the torn shirt over her chest. Lucas took a deep breath, fighting the urge to react to the power and grace in her movements. Damn, she muttered, after her shot landed several inches off. Talia, I'm never going to nail this, she said, frustration creeping in. Forget it, I'm going for a swim. But Lucas caught her before she left. Nope, swim later. Right now, keep practicing. You can do this. If you want to survive, quitting's not an option. I'm not a quitter. She squared her shoulders, the fine hairs on her neck bristling with determination. That fiery spirit was one of her most alluring traits. Oh? Lucas teased, playing the role of tough instructor. Looks like you're quitting to me, missing the target and heading for a swim. He took the sling from her hand. All right, go swim. But dinner's on you tonight. Whatever you catch is what we eat. No cheating by grabbing fruit or climbing trees. You haven't earned it yet. If you want this to be easy, it's up to you. She scowled, pride stung. Give me back my sling. I'll provide dinner, and you can go swim. Lucas smiled, satisfied. If you say so. He handed over the sling and fought the urge to tweak her nose or steal a kiss goodbye. What's the plan? If you're using worms for bait, don't squish them. I like mine intact. Scram, Lucas, she snapped, lifting her chin defiantly. You're messing with my focus and I've got dinner to catch. He gave in to the impulse to touch her, pressing a kiss to her forehead and threading his fingers through her sun-bleached hair, even as his mind wrestled with the desire to claim her as more than just a companion. Mind? She sighed. You've got worms on your breath. With a mischievous laugh, he let her go. Yell if you need me. But remember, don't wander too far into the wilds. Got it? She loaded her sling and drew back again. Lucas lingered a moment, drinking in the sight, wishing there were no limits, no lessons to repeat. Then with a heavy sigh, he climbed down the ledge. He hadn't gone 15 feet when a sharp pop hit his back. He spun around, finger pointing at the culprit. Talia, he called. Get down here, now. He caught the guilty look on her face, the kind that clearly said, Uh-oh, I'm busted. He watched closely as she carefully made her way down the rocky outcrop. He couldn't help but feel a mix of pride and admiration at how quickly she'd learned the tricky path. Trying to keep his grin in check, he noticed how effortlessly she skirted the poison ivy and met his gaze with a bold, teasing sparkle in her clear blue eyes. Yes, she said, voice light but challenging. Did you forget something? Lucas pushed down his urge to smile, focusing instead on a firm, no-nonsense tone. Did you just hit me in the butt with a stone? She glanced away, lips moistening nervously. Taking a steadying breath, she unintentionally drew his attention to the gentle rise and fall of her chest. I did. Did you miss or hit your mark? Talia shifted uneasily under his intense stare. I hit what I aimed for. Lucas held her under that look a moment longer, just to keep his authority intact before chuckling. Well, I'll be damned. Nice work, darlin'. Now get out there and bring back something we can actually eat. I'm too tough for tasting practice only. Then again, if you're up for it, we could always just snack on each other. Her eyes widened in surprise and she took a cautious step back. What held her back? Fear? The knowledge that her innocence was at stake with a man so desperate to claim it that he barely trusted himself beyond a few kisses? Or maybe she sensed the internal struggle still haunting him, the shadow of Eka that lingered between them, fading yet never quite gone. But Talia was real. They were real. Talia, does your silence mean yes? No, she said quickly. I think I'd rather stick with something more filling and less dangerous. Smart instinct. A little disappointing, but probably wise. God, he wanted her, more fiercely with each passing day. But he had to remind himself they had time. For her sake and for theirs, he needed to hold back, not rush. Even if it felt like storming the gates was inevitable. He silently repeated his personal mantra, the one that steadied him at moments like this. Talia deserves the very best, don't forget that. And the best he had to offer was himself, passion and all. Was this love? Had he finally found the mate he'd been searching for? He couldn't say for sure. What they shared didn't fit any familiar pattern. It was intense, strange, and deeply absorbing to try to unravel. Lucas? Something wrong? You're staring at me like I'm an alien. Nothing, he said as she ran her fingers lightly over his beard. Just wondering why I didn't hear the rock coming. I should have, so I could dodge it. Especially on a mission that could cost a man his life. He closed his eyes, trying to clear the jumble of emotions clouding his mind. She was messing with his head, and his heart, and that dullness wasn't welcome. He needed all his senses sharp. Shout when you catch something, I'll be there in a flash. I want to make sure you skin and cut it right. It's all part of learning. I understand, she said firmly, tapping the sling on her palm with a mixture of determination and uncertainty. He felt a surge of sympathy for her, remembering himself back at boot camp, hating the drills but knowing they were necessary. The way her mouth turned down made him want to shoulder her burden, but he couldn't, not if she was going to survive on her own someday. She had to learn the tough skills. That means you're on your own. He gripped her shoulders like a fellow soldier rallying his comrade. You're strong, you're capable. And Talia, I believe in you. Now you just have to believe in yourself. Her soft, vulnerable eyes met his, stirring the protective need inside him. I can do this, she promised. He knew she would, for herself and for him. Remember, call for me. Yes, sir. She snapped a sharp salute, and he rewarded her with a warm smile. Then, with a playful swat on her backside, he added, Now we're even. Talia gasped, hands fluttering over her behind. What was that for? Payback. Don't shoot me there again, or next time you'll have to kiss the spot and any bruises around it. His hand lingered, teasing her upper lip. Her cheeks flushed pink as she hesitated, torn between wanting him and fearing the leap. His own need was a wildfire. He had to face her. You want this, Talia. Take the chance. I can't. Why not? His voice hardened. I've waited. Stayed in my own bed when all I wanted was to crawl into yours. If you want to keep us apart, I deserve to know why. Her face clouded with conflict and longing. That day by the tree, it scares me. Seeing us lose control, act like animals. I'm afraid that once we cross that line, the little civilization we cling to will vanish. He couldn't argue. They were slipping into instinct, raw and untamed. And she was right. Their intimacy wouldn't be gentle. It would pull them into a wild, unfamiliar territory where the savages inside might surface. You know, Talia, every coin has two sides. Imagine shedding all society's rules and sharing everything without fear or boundaries. Letting go might be the most freeing thing we ever do. It's rare. Something special between a man and a woman. It'd be a shame to pass it up. He cupped her hips, pressing himself against her soft belly. Aren't you even a little tempted? Yes, but Lucas, it's more than that. It's our friendship. You're the best friend I've ever had. Once we cross that line, things change. What makes you think it won't change for the better? There are no guarantees. Of course there aren't. Life's a gamble, Talia. If you don't take risks, you might be safe. But what a dull trade for excitement, experience, and living. We want the same things. Take the risk with me, and don't borrow trouble that might never come. It's a risk no matter how you slice it. Talia's palm came up gently, resting on Lucas's chest, creating space between them. He frowned, frustration flashing across his face, but he didn't push back or close the gap. You could have me right now, she said quietly, eyes steady. And honestly, I wouldn't be able to stop you. But if I'm not willing, this won't end the way you're hoping. Her fingers gave his chest a soft, reassuring tap. Be patient, Lucas. Give us some time. What we've started is fragile and precious. I'm not ready to risk it just yet. For now, just be my friend, okay? Lucas smirked, that old familiar line cutting deep. Friends? That's a classic. Haven't heard that one in ages. He let out a low sigh, disappointment weighing heavy. You really know how to bruise my ego. And not just that. Are you mad at me? Not exactly mad, he said, darkening. We'll always have that friendship, Talia. But you've drawn a line I'm struggling to toe. This is going to be a rough rope pull, with a rope that's already worn thin. Consider this a warning, friend. Stakes are sky high. Don't expect me to play nice. The sting of her refusal still burned deep inside him. He wanted to seize her, strip away the defenses, make her crave his touch the same way he longed for hers. The urge was almost unbearable. He stepped closer, every movement laced with quiet threat. Take the hint, and get gone before I forget about all the lessons, dinners, and sleeping apart. She froze for a heartbeat. He flicked open the snap on his jeans, but before his hand even touched the zipper, she was darting toward the jungle, slingshot gripped tight. His eyes followed the curve of her retreating body, jaw clenched, summoning the last of his restraint. She'd heard him loud and clear. A short break, maybe, but no distance would keep her safe from him for long. All right, let's check the list. Rodents, gone. Bats, cleared out. No sign of any bigger predators moving in. Still damp in spots, but the homemade sealant's ready to mix. Fireplace rocks gathered, birch bark and roots collected, but wait, need some resin for that kettle. Most important, vat set up and berry brew is fermenting nicely. Lucas stretched, chuckling at his priorities. His fingers brushed the rough ceiling, grateful he wouldn't bonk his head every time he stood. He eyed their soon-to-be home, roughly 20 feet square minus some jagged edges, and nodded in approval. It would do just fine. Not huge, a little on the dark side, but damn cozy. Not bad, Kana-san, you've done well. If he could keep Talia occupied for a few more weeks and the weather held, he'd have the place shipshape. He wondered if she realized how lucky they'd been so far, only a few drizzles and no storms rocking the island. Wait, what was that noise? Lucas tilted his head toward the cave entrance, listening carefully. Nothing but wind, he told himself. He picked up the pelts from the animals he'd skinned, then buried them, an old trick to loosen the fur for easier removal. He considered which garment to tackle next. The hides were smooth, but nothing compared to Talia's skin. Soft, supple, and he imagined the chest the softest of all. His knife was ready for puncturing. The snakeskin strips, exotic and rare, were perfect for finishing touches. His gaze landed on a small pouch attached to some strips, making a crude G-string. He tapped his lips, reminded it was day 20 marked on his calendar tree. That faint noise again. Frowning, he tossed down the pelts, pocketed his knife, and strode to the cave's mouth. He listened, trying to pinpoint the sound and its direction. There it was again. Talia! He called out. He sprinted north, heart pounding faster than his legs. Talia! A panicked, urgent cry cut through the air. He veered sharply, ignoring thorns, rocks, and a low-hanging branch that slapped his face. Please be okay. She's mine. I can't stand the thought of her hurt. He saw her then, doubled over and crying, screaming his name. Breathing hard, he rushed forward, forcing himself not to grab her roughly and risk causing more pain. "I'm here, love. I'm here. Tell me what happened. Tell me." I. Her tear-streaked face lifted, trembling hands cupping his wrists. "Take a deep breath," he urged, scanning her quickly for injuries. "Now let it out." And again. She nodded, trying to steady herself. "Lucas, it was terrible. I missed the first shot, reloaded, missed again." Did something big come at you? There's no sign of anything large around here. I never would have left you alone if— No, it wasn't that. I chased it down and I hit it in the head." She's going to be okay, he thought, relief washing over him. "What did you hit?" "The rabbit." She sniffled. "I shot the rabbit." Lucas stared at her, torn between frustration and tenderness. Instead of yelling or kissing her, he simply wiped a stray tear from her cheek. "Killing's never easy," he said softly, "but the first time always hits the hardest." "I didn't kill it, Lucas. It's wounded, suffering. It's my fault." "Shh. It's okay. Show me the rabbit, Talia." She nodded and took his hand, leading him a few feet away. The little creature twitched weakly among tall grass. "Here." Her voice broke. "I can't bear to watch it suffer." Lucas steeled himself. This was a lesson she had to face. He pulled out his knife and placed it firmly in her palm. "End its misery, Talia. We can't leave it like this, and we need to eat." "No, Lucas," she begged. "Please, do it." Tears streaming, she knelt beside the rabbit, stroking it softly and whispering apologies. Her hands shook as she withdrew the longest blade from her Swiss Army knife. She looked up, silently pleading for strength. Lucas shook his head, voice firm. "Through the jugular, quick and clean." With a sob that broke his heart, she plunged the knife and made a clean cut. It was done. Talia collapsed beside the lifeless animal, staring at the blood on her hands, quiet sobs racking her frame like she'd lost a loved one. Lucas gently stroked her hair. "Come here," he whispered, pulling her close. She clung to him, silent, tears soaking his bare chest. "I feel like a murderer," she said, voice barely a whisper. "A cold-blooded murderer." "No, you did what had to be done. You were brave and responsible. We'll honor the animal. Waste nothing. The fat will be soap. I'll teach you how to tan the hide and we'll make something in memory." He kissed her tenderly, full of compassion. Taking her face in his hands, he wanted her to feel the pride he had in her courage. "You did well," he said softly. "Because of you, we'll survive tonight. But Lucas, I'd rather eat worms." That hit him like a punch. He'd joked about survival before, but this was real, and it stole his breath more than any reckless jungle sprint praying for her safety. Lucas Kane was in love, head over heels, and Talia had him on his knees. He closed his eyes, embracing her tightly. Bound together, sealed by everything they'd shared, he accepted the truth. His heart was full, with no room left for doubt. Chapter 8. Talia rested her back against a sun-warmed palm trunk, the soft rustle of leaves above barely louder than the gentle lap of water against the lagoon shore. She knew she should be out in the shallows, practicing with the makeshift spear Lucas had carved for her, a long stick tipped with a flint-sharp stone. Spearfishing, at least, was a welcome change from killing rabbits, although she'd already taken down more than she cared to count. Lucas had pushed her to go hunting again right after her first shaken attempt, claiming it was like remounting a horse after being thrown. By the third time, her nerves had settled. Sort of. The truth was, no matter how many times she succeeded, she still hated doing it. She grazed her cheek with the rabbit's foot Lucas had teased her for keeping, a charm from her first kill. She smiled faintly. Odd, how fast she'd changed. The library, the quiet stacks, the life she'd once known as a woman tucked away from confrontation and criticism, it all seemed like it had happened to someone else. That timid version of her had stayed hidden behind novels and safe distances, but now She was different. Stronger. Sharper. She could light a fire, field dress game, navigate the island. And she was sharing her life with a man who stirred her in ways both exhilarating and unsettling. Lucas made her laugh, made her feel seen. But he also terrified her, and not in the usual sense. It wasn't just his physical presence or intensity, it was the way he saw her, made her aware of parts of herself she wasn't ready to deal with. Their connection held something fierce and unpredictable, something carnal and shadowy. When he looked at her in that way at night, it made her stomach twist and her thighs ache, and not just with desire, but with dread of what it meant to surrender, especially when she'd held on to her virginity for 25 years. It was more than just nerves. It was history, upbringing, silence wrapped in shame. Still holding the rabbit's foot, Talia gave it a peck. "You've been good to me," she murmured. "Let's take a dip, then try our luck in the lagoon. I think today's a lucky day." With a girlish laugh, she rose and stretched, relishing the way her muscles tensed with strength. She was leaner now, tougher. She'd never had sock, but she imagined the buzz in her blood might feel something like this. Lucas had promised they'd share a bottle if they were ever rescued, or if he managed to ferment something island-style. She wouldn't put it past him. Glancing around to confirm Lucas wasn't nearby, she began stripping down. Her tattered shirt came off first. She'd wash it later with the soap Lucas swore he was brewing. She unfastened her worn white pants and slid them down, but the moment they were off, she froze. A deep red stain bloomed at the crotch. Her breath caught in her throat. No. Covering her mouth to stifle a gasp, she stared at the mark like it was a curse. "Oh God," she whispered. "What do I do now?" She yanked the pants back on and sank to the sand, head in her hands. Why hadn't she thought of this sooner? There were no pharmacies here, no supplies, and Lucas, he'd notice. Panic clawed at her. The shame burned. It was ridiculous, she knew, but that didn't stop it. Her family had never spoken of such things. Her mother had handled it all with a quiet handoff and downcast eyes, and her father had acted like menstruation didn't exist. Now it was here. Raw and real and unavoidable. Talia scrambled to her feet. She couldn't sit here waiting for him to find her like this. She needed somewhere to hide, somewhere she could think. She searched her surroundings, scanning with the instincts Lucas had taught her. Her gaze landed on a rock outcrop cloaked in vines and brittle leaves. She pushed through them frantically, clawing for space. Behind the foliage, she uncovered a small cave. It was just big enough for one person to curl up in. She cleared the entrance, keeping as much natural cover intact as she could. After confirming there were no snakes or rats, just a few bugs she crushed and swept aside, she crawled in and pulled the greenery shut behind her. Inside, the shadows wrapped around her like a blanket. She leaned back against the rock wall and let her eyes adjust. It wasn't much, but it was hers. A refuge, a hideaway. For now, she wouldn't tell Lucas. They shared almost everything, but this little corner would be her secret. "Talia!" She flinched and curled into herself. "Talia, come on, answer me." His voice was closer now. She couldn't see him, but she felt him. She always did. "Damn it," he muttered, the sound fading as he moved off again, still calling her name. Her time was running out. He'd come back, he'd find her, and when he did, she'd have to explain, though he'd probably guess on his own. She couldn't disappear for days. There were no pads, no tampons, no hiding forever, just her, Lucas, and the raw reality of survival. Maybe he'd have an idea. Maybe he'd even understand. She could only hope. She winced. Her pride was dangling by a thread. Of all the trials this island had thrown at her, gutting rabbits, sleepless nights, constant fear, this felt like the worst. Nothing had prepared her for this kind of vulnerability. Talia forced herself to move, each inch of progress away from the safety of the cave wall requiring grit. She crawled toward the vine-covered entrance and, with one cautious glance to make sure the coast was clear, nudged the foliage aside. Her limbs trembled as she emerged into the open. She didn't bother catching her breath. Lucas's voice was drifting closer. Panicked, She yanked the vines back into place to hide her hiding spot, then bolted toward the water. By the time she reached the lagoon, her chest was heaving. "Talia!" Gulping in air, she shouted back, "By the water, I'm here!" She didn't wait for him to see her. She dove into the cool, clear lagoon in one fluid motion, trying to lose herself beneath the surface. Maybe the water would wash away the stain, the shame. When she resurfaced, Lucas was already storming toward her, his boots crunching over the sand and stones. "Where the hell were you?" His voice was sharp, wounded. "I thought—" He stopped abruptly. Alarmed, Talia turned, scanning the trees for a threat, but there was none. The danger stood in front of her, and it was him. The way he was looking at her made the air grow thick. His gaze darkened with a flicker of intensity that was both scorching and uncertain. "You," he said, voice low and gravelly. "You look incredible like that. But I'd bet anything you'd look even better without that bra." Talia instinctively folded her arms across her chest. Her heart stopped. Her shirt. She'd left it behind crawling with bugs. She hadn't even realized until now. She took a step backward, but her knee buckled, nearly toppling her into the lagoon. Lucas stepped forward. "When I saw you like that, touching yourself, God, Talia, it should have been me." The water clung to her as she stood frozen, barely able to breathe. Fear shimmered across her skin, but it wasn't the same kind that had driven her into hiding. This was deeper, darker, something elemental. "Don't hide from me," he said roughly. "Take your hands away. Let me see you." She shook her head, mute. "Please, just let me see." He took a step closer, the shallows lapping around his ankles. Her fingers refused to move at first, locked in place, but then, afraid of what he might do if she didn't, she dropped her arms stiffly from her chest. His eyes devoured her. Then came the next demand, almost a plea. "The bra, take it off." "Lucas, no." "Yes, for me, just this." There was something in his voice, longing, reverence, and something rawer, untamed. She was terrified, and yet, underneath that fear, an ancient ache stirred within her. It was fire. It was lightning. With trembling fingers, she reached behind her, unhooked the clasp. The bra loosened and floated in the water as she let it go. Her breasts rose to the surface, light and free. Lucas moved to her slowly, like something pulled him by invisible thread. When his hands touched her face, she gasped. He skimmed her throat, then trailed his palms downward until they cupped her, reverently. "You feel like silk," he murmured. "Perfect in my hands, exactly how I imagined." His thumb grazed a nipple and she let out a sound that was almost a whisper of his name. Then his mouth replaced his hand, warm and insistent, and she arched into him, unable to hold back. Her hands found his head, urging him to stay, to go deeper, to know her. He moved from one breast to the other, each caress different, playful, then ravenous. She lifted her arms, surrendering completely, her whole body lit with sensation, every nerve alive. Then he pulled back just enough to rise and press his chest to hers. Their skin met and she gasped. His hands found hers underwater, their fingers locked. His hips shifted forward, finding the cradle of her thighs. "Talia," he groaned, "you're driving me insane. I can't think, I can't sleep. All I do is imagine being inside you. It feels right. I don't know how much longer I can wait." She felt him pulsing against her, even through the thin fabric of his clothes. Her own body responded, reaching for something that wasn't quite there. And then she remembered. The words tangled in her throat. Why had she hidden from him? He'd never been cruel, never mocked her. But right now his gaze was fixed low, hungry and focused. His hands slid over her backside, urgent and firm. He gripped her hips, pulling her against him, his body rolling into hers with instinctive rhythm. "Do you feel that?" he asked, voice raw. "What you do to me?" "Yes," she breathed, her hands clinging to his shoulders. His fingers slipped below the waistband of her pants, tugging at the zipper. Panic struck. She tried to wriggle free, but his grip held. "No, Lucas," she gasped. "Stop. You can't." He froze at her tone, His grip loosened. "Shh, it's okay," he said gently. "I know. I'll be careful. I'll make it good." I can't." The words tore from her, desperate. "I started my period today." He went still. His hand released the zipper, his eyes shut tightly. She braced herself for the recoil, the disgust. But when he opened his eyes again, what she saw made her chest crack open, understanding. "You were hiding because of that?" he asked softly. She nodded, ashamed. "I didn't want you to see." "You were scared. You didn't know what to do." "No, I still don't. You should have told me." He zipped her pants back up, then gently held her face in both hands. "Talia," he said with quiet certainty, "don't you know by now? You can tell me anything." That's when she knew it was true. She could tell Lucas anything, even this. And he'd never judge. He'd only ever meet her with patience, care, and understanding. "What do I do, Lucas?" she asked quietly. "There's no store out here. Not even a bathroom." "Shh." He brushed 2 fingers gently over her lips, then replaced them with a soft kiss. "It's natural. As old as the earth. Women survived long before modern pads and plastic wrappers. They adapted." He smiled knowingly. "There's an old trick I learned from a Cherokee elder. I don't think the ancestors would mind if I passed it on. Stay here. I'll go get what you need." He turned to leave, but Talia reached out and caught his arm. A flush rose in her cheeks as she lowered her gaze. "Thank you, Lucas. You're remarkable." He gave a short, warm laugh. "Takes someone pretty remarkable to recognize it." Then he gently tilted her chin until their eyes met. "Don't be ashamed of any part of yourself. What makes you a woman? It's not just natural, it's powerful. Beautiful, even. Like you." He was the fascinating one, she thought. Somehow, even now, standing half-naked in a lagoon on the worst day of her life, he managed to make her smile. How could she have let something so human make her feel so wrong? Of course she knew why. Her old life. The unspoken rules that told her to hide, to shrink, to apologize for being a woman. None of it made sense anymore. Not here, not with him. "I was taught to be ashamed," she admitted. "I didn't grow up accepting all of myself." "That's the real shame," Lucas said. "In some cultures, a girl's first period is sacred. They throw a feast, a rite of passage. Can you imagine that?" He tweaked her nose and gave her a crooked grin. "What do you say? Want to throw a party?" "A party," she repeated, laughing in surprise. "What kind of party?" "Just the 2 of us. Moonlight dancing. No guests. You sing, I'll pretend I know how to keep a beat. But I promise I won't ruin the mood by joining in." "You're insane," she laughed. "No wonder I love you." The words hovered, unspoken, caught in her throat. But the feeling throbbed inside her, undeniable. She swayed toward him slightly, the way a flower might lean toward the sun. And Lucas looked at her like he could see everything, every part of her. No hiding, no masks, just her. He didn't say anything, but his eyes lingered on her face before he stepped away. Her gaze followed him, lingering on the curve of his shoulders, the way his jeans hugged his thighs. Once he was back on the bank, something shifted. His tenderness gave way to something else, something primal. His eyes dropped to her bare chest, and the hunger there made her breath catch. He stared at her for a long moment, like he was trying to memorize the shape of her, burn it into his mind. It was too much, too intense. She sank lower into the water until only her chin remained above the surface. When he finally spoke again, his voice was tight, serious. "I don't mind making love. Any time of the month. Doesn't scare me. But for your sake, I suggest you put some clothes on before I get back. My self-control's wearing thin, Talia, and it won't take much more to snap." Later, Talia lay on her bed of woven fronds, watching Lucas as he stirred the fire, then finally stretched out on his own makeshift pallet. She turned toward him in the flickering firelight. "I had a good night," she said softly. "You dance better than I expected." He chuckled. "You're not so bad yourself, darlin'. You moved like my shadow, and you sing like you're made of stardust." His words filled her with a warmth that had nothing to do with the fire. The way they had danced under the open sky, her voice weaving with the night. It had felt sacred. More than any ballroom, more than any fancy dinner, their quiet celebration had been perfect. She didn't say it aloud. She didn't have to. Her eyes told him everything, that she loved him, that she felt something real and deep and unshakable. Did he feel it too? Maybe. He'd gone to such trouble, gathering wild pennyroyal red raspberry leaves, all to soothe her pain. What kind of man did that? Talia shifted, the soft string of her makeshift underwear settling against her hips. The thong, padded with dry grass, did its job. Primitive, but effective. She reached out across the narrow space between their beds. Lucas met her halfway, folding his hand over hers, their fingers intertwining. There were no more words needed. They drifted to sleep like that, sheltered by nature's arms, bound together by something unspoken but deeply understood. Chapter 9. Talia knelt by the lagoon, wringing out her shirt with weary hands. When she held it up to inspect the damage, a sigh escaped her lips. It was hopeless. The shirt was more holes than fabric now, despite weeks of scrubbing it clean with the small tin of Camper's soap Lucas had given her. He'd told her it was made from rendered fat, water, and wood ash. Old world stuff. How he'd managed to boil it, she didn't know. But she did know her shirt had reached the end of the road. Her pants weren't faring much better, which only worsened her mood. The real problem, though, wasn't the clothes. It was the heat simmering between her and Lucas, an edge of longing that was no longer ignorable. Tension had been building steadily, and lately their easy companionship had started to fray. He was more curt. She was quicker to snap. His brooding silences, laced with those fierce, hungry stares, made her chest flutter and her mind panic. She could feel it coming. The moment when his control might break. The line was stretched so tight it felt like a single wrong move. Her walking around in what amounted to underwear might cause it to finally, irrevocably snap. Her threadbare clothing gave her little to work with, but they were all she had between them and disaster. A low rumble cracked through the humid air, and she looked skyward just as a dark swell of clouds devoured the midday sun. Thunder rolled ominously. Lucas had warned her about storms in the Bermuda Triangle. Violent, sudden, merciless. The kind that tore through without warning, just like the one that had stranded them here. Clothing forgotten, Talia stood and took off running. She scaled the bluff, gripping the slick rock with damp fingers, but the storm moved faster than she did. The first downpour hit like a bucket dumped from the heavens. No soft start, just an explosion of water from a sky gone mad. Her hand slipped and she lost her footing. Sharp rock tore across her waist as she tumbled, landing hard. "Lucas!" she screamed, but her cry was whipped away by the screaming wind. Already soaked to the bone, she dragged herself up, heart hammering, lungs burning, hair plastered across her face, the sting of rain on her cheeks mixing with what might have been tears. She wasn't sure anymore. She had to move. The lagoon, once their sanctuary, had turned into a death trap. She had to find shelter before she was flattened by the storm's fury. The cave she sometimes used for solitude was closer than their main camp. She veered toward it, bracing against the wind's assault. A blinding flash of lightning tore across the sky, followed by a boom that felt like it shook the bones out of the earth. The bolt struck terrifyingly close, maybe 20 feet. The blast left her ears ringing, her scalp tingling. Staggered, she dropped to her knees and crawled, feeling hunted, helpless beneath the sky's fury. Her limbs felt heavy, slow, but she kept her eyes locked on the dark opening ahead. She reached the edge of the jungle, where branches whipped and flailed like they were possessed. She pushed forward until something struck her shoulder. She screamed, expecting the crack of a falling limb, but instead felt herself being lifted, swept up by arms that knew her shape. Lucas. She looked up into his rain-slicked face, his jaw clenched against the wind. "You're safe," he mouthed, She couldn't hear him over the chaos, but she could read the words on his lips and feel the solid safety of his arms. She held on tight, pressing her face to his neck, letting the warmth of his body ground her while he fought through the elements with relentless resolve. Branches slapped at her back. Rain ran in rivulets down her skin. She could smell the wild storm tangled with his scent, taste the salt and sweat on the air. His hands, large and rough, tried to shield her as best he could. Time warped. But finally, she realized the air had gone still. Lucas set her down gently, and she found herself on a stone floor, cool and smooth beneath her. Around them, rock walls muffled the storm's scream. She peeled face away from his shoulder. His skin was scratched, red lines crossing his chest and arms like he'd fought with thorns and won. "Where are we?" Her voice trembled. He gave her a crooked smile. "Home, sweet home. I was going to carry you over the threshold eventually, just not like this." He sank to his knees beside her, his chin dropping to his chest as he breathed in harsh, ragged gulps. Muscles twitched beneath skin stretched thin from effort. Only then did she look around. The cave's mouth gaped wide behind them, but the stone wall refused to yield to the storm. Safe. They were finally safe. "Close your eyes," he said, brushing his fingers gently over her lids. "Why?" "I need a second to catch my breath. Then I'm giving you the grand tour." "A tour?" Despite everything, her heart fluttered with excitement. "You'll see. No peeking." She tried to comply, but couldn't resist a small squint through her lashes. He said sternly, even while breathless. "Spoils the surprise if you cheat." She snapped her eyes shut. He slid an arm under her knees and lifted her once more. She felt the cave deepen around them, a shift in air, the scent of damp stone and earth, the sense of being enclosed. Then, "Now, open 'em." Talia blinked as her eyes adjusted. They were in a recess tucked into the stone, closer to the cave mouth but out of reach of the wind. In front of her stood a makeshift fireplace, stakes driven into a patch of transplanted soil, tied to a frame of saplings. Beneath it, gravel layered over dirt. "A fireplace," Lucas said with a grin. "Perfect for rainy days." "A fireplace," she echoed. "Lucas, this is incredible." He laughed. "Let's not get too dramatic. It's no estate on the Cape, but it beats our sad little fire pit on the shore." She couldn't help it. Her heart surged. "Oh, Lucas, it's amazing. It's more than I could have dreamed." "Easy now," he teased. "You might want to save some adjectives. We're not done yet." He let her slide down his body, her feet touching the cool stone floor. She didn't hide the delight on her face, or the deeper truth behind it. She adored him. "What else?" Talia asked, barely able to contain herself. Her voice bounced with excitement, though she tried hard not to actually bounce along with it. Lucas arched an eyebrow at her enthusiasm, then swiftly bent to retrieve something from behind a nearby rock. With a flourish, he presented her with a strange-looking wooden vessel, shaped with clear purpose and a hint of crude elegance. "A kettle," he said with mock grandeur. "Treated so it won't burn when we place it on the fire." "A pot. You made me a pot." Her squeal burst from her before she could stop it. She surged up onto her toes and peppered his face with ecstatic kisses. "You incredible man. You beautiful, ingenious—" "Savage," he cut in, low and deliberate, just before seizing her mouth in a kiss that burned hot and possessive. She melted into it, responding without hesitation, kissing him back like she'd been waiting for this moment her whole life. She was already shifting against him, ready to climb him like a tree, when he pulled back. Just enough. "Talia," he warned, voice rough and trembling with restraint. "I'm not sweet. I'm a man teetering on the edge of claiming you so hard, that storm out there will seem like a lullaby by comparison. Unless you're ready to be offered up like a virgin sacrifice, you'd better tone down the enthusiasm, or we're not finishing the tour." "Sorry," she said, not sounding the least bit sorry. Lucas exhaled and shook his head, like he was trying to reset his brain. Then he grabbed her hand and led her deeper into the cave. "Next stop," he said, voice low and teasing. "The boudoir." He gestured toward two sleeping pallets positioned close, but deliberately not touching. His gaze landed on her with meaning. "Single beds for now, but they'll be pushed together soon. And when they are, there won't be any daylight between them." Even in her excitement, Talia felt the tremor of truth under his words. His restraint was thinning. The certainty in his voice, mixed with barely leashed desire, sent a shiver straight through her. Without waiting, Lucas moved toward the far end of the cave and pointed to a peculiar handmade container. "Now what do we have here?" he asked, lips twitching. She tilted her head. "No clue. You tell me." He tapped the lid with his fingers. "Come on, you can guess. The wine cellar, obviously." "Mademoiselle," she corrected primly, drawing on 4 years of high school French. "That's madame only if I'm married. Otherwise—" "I know the difference," he interrupted, his tone suddenly firm, eyes narrowing as he locked on hers. "Madame." His stare was too intense, too layered with meaning. Talia looked away, focusing on the vat. "Do you actually have wine in there?" "Close," he said, knocking on the side. "It's full of berries and a few chemically questionable additions. Needs more time to ferment. But I'm thinking of sampling it tonight." His gaze dropped to her chest, still only covered by a damp bra. His lips curled slightly. "Might take the edge off. Help me sleep, finally." Talia crossed her arms instinctively, trying to shield herself, and maybe him, from where her mind went next. A Lucas unrestrained by control, liquored by his own brew. God help her. The image of him giving in to all his tension, pinning her under his strength, made her knees go weak. She shivered. "You're cold," he said, stepping forward to rub her arms. His hands moved briskly at first, then slowed, turned into a stroke, then a caress. "I saved the best for last," he murmured. He leaned down and came up with 2 folded pieces of soft, earthy-colored hide. Voila, new clothes. He placed them reverently into her hands. The moment she touched them, tears welled in her eyes. "You made me clothes? They're strong, not exactly Paris couture, but on you." He trailed off, a wicked glint in his eye, and laughed softly. "Let's just say, I don't think anything could look better on you. Except maybe nothing at all." Talia hugged the garments close to her chest, fingers tracing the seams. She'd been showered with gifts before, expensive, sparkly things. But this handmade offering of care and effort outshone them all. "They're beautiful, Lucas. I don't even have the words to thank you." "Sure you do. Try them on." He turned toward the fire pit, his voice low. "Don't worry, I won't look." Talia watched his back as he busied himself with kindling. Her heart pounded. She wanted to run to him, wrap her arms around him again. But instead, she walked to the far end of the cave, where the light was faint and privacy more assured. Holding the outfit up, she saw he'd made a bodice and a pair of shorts. Short shorts, snakeskin lacing zigzagged down the sides. She inspected the crotch and blinked. It was roomy. Practical for movement, but not exactly modest. Not for someone scaling trees with a man potentially below, looking up. Her jaw dropped. What in the world had he been picturing when he designed this? Fredericks of the jungle? Still, he'd made them just for her. The pang of guilt hit fast and deep. She slipped off her soaked bra and eased the bodice on. The leather hugged her bare skin like a whisper, soft and sensuous. Her nipples brushed the inside of the pelt, and it sent a pulse of heat straight to her core. Had he imagined this? Imagined her, while crafting it? She realized her hands were roaming her own breasts, palms flat, fingers drifting. "What am I doing?" Shocked, she yanked her hands away. The touch hadn't been idle, it had been hungry, and she was only 10 steps from Lucas. Who was she becoming out here? Her former life, the composed, cultured version of herself, flickered like a mirage. This woman, stroking her own skin in secret, was new. Raw. Wild. Quickly, she swapped out her tattered bottoms for the new shorts, not giving herself time to dwell on how the suede brushed between her thighs. No hesitation, no exploring. She marched straight toward him. Lucas turned, and his throat visibly bobbed as he swallowed hard. "Oh, wow." His voice was hoarse. Yeah, that fits. Maybe a little too well." "It's comfortable," she said, smoothing her hands over her hips, then catching herself and pulling them back. "You did a really good job." He nodded, mute, clearly on the brink of self-destruction. With effort, he turned back to the fire, his hands moving too quickly. He didn't trust himself to look at her again. "Tell you what," Lucas said, already walking toward a pile of supplies in the back of the cave. "We'll settle for some jerky and dried fruit I've stashed away. It's in the corner over there. You go grab it while I change." Talia lifted a brow. "You made something for yourself too?" He gave her a half grin, half groan. "Matching outfits, sweetheart. These pants are more holes than fabric, and frankly, I'm done wearing them. You don't mind, do you?" He shot her a quick sideways glance, and instantly regretted it. Her fingers were grazing the suede shorts like she was memorizing the texture, her expression dazed and dreamy. She noticed his stare and jerked her hands away, cheeks flushing. "Of course I don't mind," she said, turning on her heel with a voice too husky to be casual. "Go ahead, don't worry. I won't look." "You can," he murmured, "if you want to." She paused, mid-step. Her back stiffened slightly. For one heartbeat, he thought she might turn around. But then she shook her head, gave a low, breathless laugh, and walked off. Lucas let his gaze follow the hypnotic sway of her hips, the long stretch of bare legs from thigh to ankle. He felt something dark and molten stir inside him, thick and consuming. He forced his eyes away, back to the fire, then out to the receding storm. The wind outside had howled like a beast, but what stirred inside him now made that storm feel like child's play. His desire had shifted from steady hunger to ravenous ache. He was no Zen monk trained to master body and mind, no noble warrior walking a path of celibacy and discipline. He was a man, plain and simple, and the fire in his blood was nearing an inferno. And the terrifying part? He loved her. Probably too much. With a low growl and a muttered curse, Lucas stripped down and threw on his new clothes. The shorts, if he could even call them that, barely qualified as more than a loincloth. They hugged tight and left little to the imagination. His arousal, despite the cool air and his best efforts, refused to be hidden. Grim-faced, he strode past Talia without so much as a glance. Looking at her now would undo him completely. He marched straight to the vat of fermenting wine and yanked the lid off. "Please, God, let this stuff be strong." "Found the jerky and fruit," Talia said, approaching. She reached out and touched his arm. "Where do you want to eat?" "Outside, by the fire. Anywhere but the bed," he said, voice rough and eyes flaring with warning. Don't sit on the bed!" His gaze locked on hers, and the message was clear as lightning striking between them. She blinked, slowly dropped her hand and stepped back. "Meet you by the fire," she said, her voice soft. Too soft. Soft like her skin, soft like temptation, soft like the curves he was dangerously close to losing himself in. Lucas turned back to the vat. He dipped his head and took a long sip. Tart, sharp, almost bitter. The first alcohol to touch his lips in nearly 2 months, and it hit hard, buzzing straight to his brain and down to his toes. It didn't mellow him, not quite, but it loosened the reins, took the edge off. He drank deep, fast, like a man starved. Not with elegance, but with raw need. Less like a connoisseur and more like a wolf slaking his thirst. He finally pulled back, feeling lightheaded and strangely more in control. Enough, at least, to call for her. His woman. That's what she was now. His. "Hey, Talia," he called, wiping his mouth. "Come get a mouthful of this." He caught the faint patter of footsteps against stone. "Don't you want to eat something?" she asked, stepping into view. "Nah, I'd rather drink. Come on, try it with me." She knelt beside him, then stopped short before taking a sip. "You don't happen to have a glass, do you?" Lucas threw his head back and laughed, rough and genuine. God, she made him feel good. "I've got a few coconut shells, I'll give you one. On one condition." She narrowed her eyes. "Not that." He grinned. "I just want to see you toss back a swig. Ditch the dainty act and drink straight from the barrel. Shed the last trace of civilization, sweetheart." Talia considered. Then she gave him a slow smile. "If I guzzle, I get a cup?" "You've got my word," he said solemnly. "A man's only as good as that." She glanced from him to the vat, then gave a light shrug. "Why not?" She leaned forward, and before her hair could fall in, Lucas instinctively reached out and gathered it in one hand, holding it away. He heard her take a few tentative sips, then a sudden cough. "Good Lord," she wheezed, pulling back and wiping her mouth. "What the hell is in that?" "Told you. It packs a punch." She giggled, a little loose now, a little lighter. "Okay, I guzzled. Now where's my cup?" "2 cups, coming up." He rummaged through the corner and found 2 coconut shells, clean and dry. He poured her a drink first, handing it over with care. She sniffed it, swirling the berry-colored liquid with the flair of a wine taster. "So, how's the bouquet?" Lucas smirked. "A tad rough? Let's call it bold." She took a swig and blinked. "It reminds me of you. Not exactly refined, but definitely intoxicating." Their eyes locked over the makeshift cup. Something passed between them, something unspoken, but searing. He watched her blink, maybe a little slower than usual. Her lashes fanned down, then up again. She didn't have the same tolerance he did. He could see it. And that scared him too. Lucas had known women before. He wasn't proud of it, but there'd been nights he used their inebriation to his advantage. Flirtations that blurred into something more under the haze of wine or whiskey. But Talia wasn't a girl to use. She was a woman who'd already taken up residence in his bones. And God help him, he was losing his grip. "Drink up, darlin'," he said softly, tilting the edge of the coconut shell to her lips. "There's plenty more where that came from." Chapter 10. Lucas watched the wine kiss Talia's lips, the deep reds soaking into their fullness. He poured another shellful for himself, then gently tapped it against hers. "Shall I propose a toast?" he offered. "No," she said, her voice a velvet hush as she reached up and brushed her fingertips against his mouth. "Let me." Her eyes gleamed like starlight. "To our beautiful new home," she said, "and to the man who built it." He smiled. A slow, warm spread of affection stirred in his chest. "And to the woman who gave him the reason to build it." Their arms twined as they lifted their cups, gazes locked, the air around them thickening like honey in the heat of a fire. They drank slowly, still watching each other. As the wine slipped down his throat, Lucas felt himself sinking into the ocean-deep pull of her eyes. Getting Talia a little tipsy had started out as an idea. Now it felt like destiny. "What do you like best?" he asked, leaning forward. A single drop of berry wine had traced down her chin, and he licked it away with a soft stroke of his tongue. That's easy." Her lips curved in a smile, and she leaned in to press a kiss to the dimple in his chin. "What I like best is you." That was it. Hell or high water, tonight he was making her his. But he wasn't going to let wine do the heavy lifting. She deserved more than that. She deserved a seduction. "I think you'll like me even better after I give you the most special present of all." She tilted her head. "More?" Her voice was touched with laughter, touched with something warmer. "Lucas, you've already given me so much. What more could I possibly want?" Guilt flared, a sharp blade between his ribs. He'd walked a tightrope since meeting her, balancing his want with her innocence, his need with his restraint. Even now, knowing he could probably sweep her into bed with a kiss and a murmur, it didn't feel like enough. She deserved more than desire. She deserved intention. Without a word, he set down their cups and took her hand, guiding her over to the fire. The storm outside had finally moved on, leaving behind a warm hush in its wake. The breeze that drifted in smelled clean and new, like the air itself was exhaling. He knelt before her, knees brushing hers, his gaze steady. "This is for you," he said, and offered her a small object. Talia's eyes widened. A comb! Crafted from the polished spine of a large fish, it gleamed in the firelight like something far more precious than it was. "There's more." He placed a carved abalone shell into her palm. "The comb gets the tangles out. The shell keeps your hair out of your face. Functional. Beautiful. Like you." Her eyes misted a little as she looked from the gifts to him. Then she glanced down at herself. And he was pretty sure, at the barely there wrap he was wearing. Her lips curled into a secret smile. "Well, almost the most beautiful," she teased. "Nothing but the best for you, darlin'," he said softly. That fierce, uncontrollable ache inside him quieted for a moment, replaced by something deeper. Something that felt a hell of a lot like love. "What do you say we give it a try?" Talia didn't hesitate. She gathered her hair and slid the comb in, only to immediately wince. "Ow, it's stuck. It's been ages since I used a real brush." "Here," Lucas said, shifting behind her. "Sit in front of me. I'll do it. You don't mind?" "Mind?" He laughed low. "I've been dying to get my hands in your hair." She nestled between his legs, her back to his chest, his groin pressed lightly against the base of her spine. When she wiggled to get comfortable, he gritted his teeth. The fire inside him flared again. Stone hard, irrevocably. He smoothed his hands through her hair, long and wild and sun-bleached at the ends. Then he traced his thumbs in soft circles at her temples. She leaned back with a blissful sigh, a contented sound that made his heart stutter. He took up the comb and gently began working through the tangles from the bottom up. "How did you become a ninja?" she asked. Her voice was soft, a little dreamy, definitely tipsy. He hit a knot, tough and stubborn, and stopped. "I'm not a ninja, not really," he said. "Not yet." His jaw flexed. The answer wasn't easy. "I don't know if I'll ever be. But you know the moves. You even taught me how to throw someone twice my size." "It's more than just moves, Talia." His voice dropped. "To be a true ninja, you have to be strong. Not just in the body, in the mind, the soul, me. I'm not always strong. Sometimes I'm the opposite of strong." "You're strong," she murmured. "But if I make you weak, I'm glad." Her head tilted back against his chest and she purred, That feels wonderful, Lucas." He smiled through the ache. She had no idea what she was doing to him. "You never told me how you met your grandmaster," she added. "He didn't teach you how to brush a woman's hair, did he? Because if he did, he was very good." Lucas chuckled. "No, this I figured out on my own, but he taught me most everything else." "How did you meet him? Was it a chance thing or ow?" "Sorry," he murmured. He swept her hair aside and pressed a soft kiss to the tender skin just below her ear. The subject was a sore one, and he hadn't expected it to come up tonight of all nights. Still, maybe he could share just enough. "It was over 10 years ago," he said, his voice going quiet with memory. "Feels like another lifetime." "You were in the military?" "Yeah. I came in long after Nam, so I missed the worst of it. Mostly I trained allies in guerrilla tactics." What he didn't say was that he'd been molded into a perfect human weapon and trained others to be the same. His expression turned granite. "We'd just wrapped up a mission, let's say involving terrorists. It went well. Too well. I was cocky. Thought I'd earned a little downtime, so I went to Japan. Planned to drink sake, see some temples. Forget the things I'd done." "Is that when you met him?" "Not immediately." He hit another brutal knot and reached for his knife. With a practiced flick, he sliced through the tangle, careful not to nick her skin. The hair drifted down like silk as he resumed his work. I was leaving a bar near the end of my trip and I saw a pack of GIs surrounding a local girl, roughing her up. I saw red. Talia gasped. The sound made him feel something tighten and crack inside. She was still soft, still open-hearted. War hadn't jaded her the way it had him. I knew exactly where that scene was headed, he said, his voice flat. I'd seen it before. Too many times. That night. I knew I was done. As soon as my tour was up, I was getting out. You've never talked about any of this before? Not much to say. He paused. Back then, the special forces weren't exactly on top of the world, and we weren't popular. Anything, anytime, anyplace, anyhow. That was our motto. We were the bastard sons of the military. Too wild, too loose. He combed through the last of the tangles, her head lolling in dreamy trust against his chest. And still, the thing inside him burned. But it wasn't just lust. It was history, hurt, longing, and love. The kind that didn't come softly, but scorched. Talia stayed perfectly still as Lucas carefully snipped away another stubborn tangle of her hair. All things considered, he said softly, I never really minded retiring my beret. I wasn't in demand much anymore. I need you, she murmured, letting out a lazy yawn. So, what really happened that night? I stepped in, Lucas replied. There were 4 of them surrounding me. I managed to take down 2 before a short, older man showed up. The memory was sharp, like it happened only moments ago. The Grandmaster? Talia yawned again, curling closer to his chest. I didn't know him by that title back then, Lucas said. But I remember the raw power he carried. Watching him move was like witnessing lightning in human form. I'd trained with the best fighters, yet I was eating his dust. Before I could even blink, those guys were strewn across the ground. I swear my jaw dropped to the floor. Then he bowed quick, elegant like a nobleman. When he stood, he looked at me in a way I'll never forget. Strange? She whispered. Very, Lucas admitted. It was like he'd known me forever. Then he gripped my shoulder firmly and told me in perfect English that we were destined to meet. He nuzzled his nose against her hair, which carried the fresh scent of rain and herbs. That's exactly how I felt the first time I touched you. Ah, Talia sighed, comforted. What about the girl? Was she okay? Shaken but fine, Lucas answered. She was his granddaughter, Eka. Her name was Eka. He tensed, pulling Talia closer. He hadn't spoken his fiancée's name in what felt like forever. That part of his past had no place here, no space in what he shared with Talia. And what became of Eka? She grew up, Lucas said with a hint of something unspoken. He recalled how she doted on him, her wide, trusting eyes looking at him like he was a hero, which he knew he wasn't. She waited on him hand and foot during his leave, and later, when he returned to study under her grandfather. Wanting to end the tale quickly, he finished. Anyway, the Grandmaster invited me to share a cup of sake, and that's how the rest unfolded. He ran the comb one last time through Talia's now smooth hair, her head leaning back onto his shoulder. Stunning, he whispered, pressing a tender kiss to her temple and setting aside the comb. He noticed she still loosely gripped the abalone shell. Enough about my past, he said, sliding his hand along the graceful curve of her neck. All I care about now is you, us, this moment, what we feel and the life I want to build with you. His fingers drifted up her ribs, pausing when he felt a small, raised bruise. He'd take care of that soon enough. Moving upward, he met no resistance. The wine's warmth had done its work, loosening her defenses. Her breast warmed his palm, swelling beneath his touch. Gently rubbing her nipple, he was rewarded as it hardened beneath his thumb. It's time, love, he murmured. Let's go to bed. Her only reply was a sleepy sigh, followed by a soft, almost inaudible snore. Lucas stared down at her peaceful face in disbelief. She was out cold. His plan to ease her into it so he could take her had backfired spectacularly. He was rock hard, she was soft and warm beneath him, and she was utterly unconscious, just like the day he'd first touched her in the glade. He could do it now. But it wouldn't be enough. Not even close. He wanted her awake, eager, willing. He wanted to hear her cries, to feel her tremble and take him fully. Lucas groaned, resting his chin on her head. Every salty curse he'd ever learned flooded his mind, though he'd vowed to use better words. At this rate, he wasn't going to get any sleep, if he ever had since they were stranded. His frustration reached a new peak. His best option was to drink enough wine to dull the ache. The urge to let his primal needs override reason was nearly suffocating. With immense effort, he pushed the desire away. He carefully freed the abalone comb from Talia's hand and tucked it back into her hair. Rising with a resigned sigh, he lifted her gently and laid her on her pallet. Next, he headed to the water barrel, taking long, bitter gulps. The stuff was terrible. If he woke without a hangover, it'd be a miracle. He stared at Talia, fighting off his lustful thoughts. Once the wine took effect, he grabbed some healing salve and returned to her side. He scowled at the separate pallets and shoved them together. Dropping to his knees, he rolled her over and pulled her bodice up, confirming the bruise was minor. As he rubbed the balm into her skin, his eyes drank in the sight of her breasts. When he finished, he lay down beside her. He dreamed of exploring her curves freely, of molding those creamy mounds as he pleased. He imagined his mouth descending, tasting her delicate flesh, his tongue flicking over her nipple, desperate and hungry. Then he stopped imagining. He just did it. But not for long. Sleep took him, the distant echo of taps playing in his mind, along with the soft sound of drool escaping his mouth. His last clear thought was this. Today, he'd brought his bride home and offered her his love. Tomorrow, he would claim her completely. Talia wasn't sure what woke her first, the soft morning light filtering into their cave or the dull ache behind her temples. She tried to rise but found herself pinned beneath a weight. Looking down, she saw Lucas's head nestled against her chest, his lips brushing a bare nipple. Her eyes widened. Her top was pushed up to her neck, obviously Lucas's doing while she slept. He shifted, and she noticed one large leg draped possessively over hers. His thigh was snugly pressed between her legs, nudging her shorts aside and pressing firmly against her most sensitive spot. His erection, barely covered by his shorts, pressed insistently against her hip. What had happened last night? She'd been woozy, sure, but aware enough to know the difference between gentle grooming and what this clearly was. They still wore their clothes, sort of, not enough to stop what might come next, given how little they actually had on. Lucas emitted a low groan in his sleep. Talia's heart jumped. He could wake any second now. Panic rose inside her. If he stirred, he'd be on top of her before she even had a chance to react. He wouldn't ask for permission. He would simply take what he wanted, and she knew his passion wouldn't be gentle. Her instinct screamed at her to slip away before it was too late. If she could just hide for a while, maybe he could gather himself and hold back before losing every shred of control she sensed was barely there. Slowly, she shifted her hips away from him. He growled softly in response, tightening his leg over hers like a clamp. Talia froze, unwilling to move a muscle. She waited, counting the seconds until his breathing steadied into an even rhythm. The relief of knowing he was still asleep washed over her in a rush. Summoning her courage, she tried again, this time moving her upper body first. She relied on the subtle, quiet movements Lucas had taught her, sliding away like a breeze through the leaves. Just as she was free from his chest, his head lolled to the side, nearly falling to the ground. She caught him by the hair just in time and gently laid his head back on the cushion of leaves. Her heart pounded fiercely, her legs trembling with adrenaline. She prayed silently that his finely tuned senses wouldn't pick up on her trembling. Slowly, inch by inch, she sat upright. Steeling herself for the hardest part, she began to slide her hips farther from his. Her eyes caught sight of the bulge in his shorts. Talia swallowed hard. He was ready for her, right there. Escape was no longer optional, it was absolutely necessary. Forcing herself to look away, she slid out from under him in silence. Finally free, she saw his hand reach blindly for where she'd been. Her heart raced even faster. Seizing the moment, she sprang to her feet and darted toward the cave's entrance. She paused just long enough to glance back. Lucas shifted onto his side and let out a soft snore, the sweetest sound she'd ever heard. Quiet as a shadow, she slipped away to safety. Lucas reached out, feeling for Talia's warmth beside him. His hand brushed against soft leaves instead of skin. Frantically, he searched with an open palm, intending to pull her back to him. Nothing. His eyes snapped open and he sat up with a jerk. Big mistake. The walls of Jericho seemed to crash down on his foggy mind, exploding like a bomb in his skull. "Talia!" he shouted, clutching his pounding temples. "Talia, are you here?" Only silence answered. She was gone. He cursed under his breath, then swung his legs over the side of the pallet. He wasn't sure what frustrated him more, that she'd slipped away or that his drunken haze had let it happen. Casting a bitter glare at the empty keg, Lucas set off to find her. His hangover was brutal, but his hunger was just as fierce as when he'd fallen asleep. His drunken dreams had been thick with desire. Hell, he was surprised he hadn't woken with a wet dream. Outside, he caught her trail and followed it. Near the lagoon, he paused and sniffed the breeze. The wind blew from the east, carrying the faintest trace of a woman's scent. His hangover began to fade as a fresh rush of excitement filled his veins. He was closing in. Lucas crouched behind a thick patch of trees overlooking the narrow strip of pebbled beach. Branches lay scattered along the shore, a reminder of the storm's fury. He spotted her instantly. Talia was bent over a small pool of rainwater, drinking quickly as if racing against time. She cupped her hands and splashed water over her face. Suddenly, she tilted her head back. Lucas's breath caught. Streams of water ran down her cheeks and neck, disappearing beneath the bodice she wore. His fists clenched, aching to tear away that final barrier to her naked skin. Talia froze, eyes darting nervously. He had taught her well, every instinct was finely tuned, and her reaction only shredded the fragile control he clung to. They mirrored each other perfectly, two halves made whole. She was his match, and he was hers. Only one symbolic step remained to seal their bond. His hand drifted toward the drawstring, resting low on his hips as he crept forward, silent and steady. Talia caught sight of him the instant he stepped from the cover of trees. She sprang to her feet and edged backward, shaking her head in protest. "Yes," Lucas whispered under his breath, eyes locked on the space between her thighs. He dropped from the rocky ledge, landing on all fours with cat-like ease. In a flash, she was running. Lucas quickened his pace and began to hunt her.